Mandalorian season 2, awesome, awesome. There's so many things about this like a fever dream.
Okay.
Like, just from like Jump Street episode 1, it's like, was I in my wildest Star Wars imagination concocting a a plot where Timothy Oliphant was the marshal of a town wearing Boba Fett's armor?
Okay,
like,
now Timothy Oliphant, he was super familiar to me as I was watching it, but I never like looked him up and be like, okay, where do I know him from? So like, where do I know him from?
He's on Justified, I believe.
Okay.
You've seen him recently, probably in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That's got to be it. Okay, and who was he in that?
He was the cowboy actor opposite Leonardo DiCaprio. Remember when Leo was botching his lines up?
Uh-huh. Okay, yeah. He had to keep like doing that. Okay, like he looked super familiar. The
first time I saw him was in
something.
Scream 2.
Okay, yeah. There's got to be something else that I know him from. So I'll have to go look that up and then do like some an overdub. Do some Foley work.
I have 2 coconuts.
The thing with the Boba Fett outfit, yeah, like it's interesting that they like kind of bring like the Mandalorian, like the guy, like we that this is kind of the father of all this stuff. They bring like him actually into the story.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, these are all spoilers, and again, like it'll be a fun thing to talk about because like so much of season 2 was like spoiled to me before I even watched season 1. So like I'm curious, like, oh, how did this play out for you, or like this part or that part, because like some of these parts like I had so like I knew like Boba Fett was going to show up. I knew that again, spoiler alert, please stop if you haven't watched 10 9 8 so like that Luke Skywalker shows up at the end. Like I knew about that. So I am curious. Like I mean, we could get to that, but I'm curious. Like how
spoilers.
Yeah,
I had no spoilers.
Yeah.
I had everything was a shocker to me. And I haven't been and I'm a spoiler freak. I don't normally come in cold on stuff, and I was surprised across the board on the guest stars.
Yeah.
General plot stuff. Boba Fett showing up, Luke showing up, like
a lot of the guest stars. Like there were a lot of things that weren't spoiled, but like the major and then even like Baby Yoda having a name and his name Grogu. Yeah. That was kind of spoiled like a couple weeks ago. Like I was talking to some people and they were just sort of casually talking about Grogu, and I'm like, what are you talking? And I felt like such a rube that like I've been calling him Baby Yoda all this time.
What's so amazing?
And he's got a real name that like everybody's just like using like
the child, and now he's Grogu. He's Grogi Yodi.
Grogi Yoda. Yeah, I mean Yoda's got to be his last name. Grogu Yoda.
Grogu Yoda. Grogu, isn't that when Grover's a guest on like Slime Time Live?
Yeah, or Grogu is some like toy from the 90s, some like slime kind of thing. It's like
Grogu.
You like add water to it and it starts to expand. It's like, so like the Marshal shows up in the Boba Fett armor, and he kind of has like pieces of it, and then he has like his red shirt showing under it. But then when we were watching, like we talked about before, how we love the end credits, how you see like the concept drawings for the episode. So like they seem like they're different enough from like the actual episode that it seems like, okay, these are the actual concept drawings. This is like before they started shooting it, maybe before they started casting certain roles. But like, so in the concept art, you see just the full Boba Fett outfit. Like it's like Boba Fett's walking around. So that was the concept. But obviously they made the decision of like, they wanted it to read as like, okay, this isn't Boba Fett. This is a guy wearing Boba Fett's outfit. That's why it's like they have parts of it, but then red and stuff. And also like maybe if like Boba Fett showed up in his full Boba Fett regalia, it would just pull focus too much. Where you're like, okay, I want to see what happens. Forget the Mandalorian. I want to see what happens to him.
Just the pieces of the armor are jogging your nostalgia memory, because when, spoiler alert, Boba Fett, the man himself, shows up later. I don't know about you, but I like my original Boba Fett, like Jeremy Bulloch. Yeah. He's just like a guy on the street. Tamara Morrison, we love you, but it looks like he dipped into the creatine supplement like storage.
Right, like I don't know how well the Boba Fett armor still fits.
Yeah,
you know? And that he probably doesn't even need armor. You know?
he's found his way into the absolute orange like stackers.
Yeah, and
minstrels.
Another thing like that is kind of like you just have to sort of accept in these movies is like the aging is real inconsistent because it's like Ewan McGregor in like 17 years turns into Alec Guinness, and it's like, you know, so like those were some hard years, and then like between Return of the Jedi and this, which are maybe supposed to be, I don't know, like 2 or 3 years or something, whatever.
Yeah.
Boba Fett has aged like to an insane degree because he was like a little kid during the Clone Wars, and then, you know, like an adult in Star Wars, in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and then in this he's like an old man. But he was in the Sarlacc pit, so maybe that kind of like scarred him, aged him.
He crawled out.
He crawled out. Just another thing, like it got me thinking that it seems to me like I wonder if the initial pitch for this show, before it became what it became, before it became The Mandalorian, if like maybe it was originally pitched as a Boba Fett show, and it maybe started with Boba Fett clawing his way out of the Sarlacc, and then his armor's all messed up from like the stomach acids and stuff. He needs new armor, so then he goes and he takes this bounty, and like the way it centers around Tatooine and stuff, and he takes this bounty, and then he gets like upgraded armor that looks more like his father's armor, and like all this, you know, and he finds himself in this nurture. He went from being this kind of jerk, and now he's in this nurturing role towards Baby Yoda, and it's like he watched his dad die when he was little. Like it just got me that like the initial free association stages, like maybe that's what it was like for Jon Favreau or whatever. It was like, oh yeah, what if, you know, Boba Fett climbed, and maybe the story started out that way, or maybe he pitched it that way, and they were like, oh, look, we don't want to do that with Boba Fett. Why don't we just make it a different Mandalorian? You know, like, but like I could imagine an alternate version of this that wouldn't have changed too much, where it's like it is Boba Fett, you know, instead of like a new Mandalorian, and for whatever, and maybe it was just a creative decision of like, oh, it makes more sense to introduce a new character because like Boba Fett's got so much baggage. But then by season 2, it's like, okay, we've established ourselves, we're a huge hit. We can bring Boba Fett into the fold.
It's like just seeing in one of the later episodes in the series when Slave 1 is just like shooting across the sky, you're like, oh my god, you just like there's just any little nugget just like sets you off.
Even like when Boba Fett does come into the story, and then he puts on his armor again, it's like incomplete. It's like he's got this like black Tusken Raider outfit that he wears, and he's got the gaffy sticks and stuff.
I couldn't remember that was when I was using that. I was like, what is the name of that?
Yeah, the gaffy stick, and you get to see the gaffy stick in action and all the cool stuff it can do. But then he's walking around with his robe, and then with like the bits of the Boba Fett armor over it, and again when you watch the end of the episode and see the initial drawings, it's full on Boba Fett. It's he's wearing his complete Boba Fett costume. So again, it's like, was he going to pull focus? Because it is like, okay, now I want to watch the Boba Fett show. They blow up the Mandalorian spaceship, the Razor
Crest. I wasn't called the Razorback.
Yeah, they blow up the Razor Crest, and then now they're flying around in the Slave One, Boba Fett's original ship. And it's like, oh, okay, like let's just make this the ship for the rest of the like you know, season 3, he's flying around in the Slave One wearing Boba Fett's armor, and then it is the Boba Fett show. You know?
I appreciated the abuse the Razor Crest took throughout the series. I love it, like getting soaking wet, like sandy, snowy. Mm-hmm. At one point, it's flying around with like 5 holes in it.
Yeah,
like an open like cabin.
Yeah, and it's like they just pressurize. They haven't. Yeah, and then it just gets blown up. It just
put it out of its misery.
Yeah, but it is like a continuation of like the story of the Millennium Falcon. You know, in like Empire Strikes Back is where like that's really established. Of like, okay, this thing's just holding together with like bubble gum, and they're constant, like things aren't working, and they're constantly like filling gaps and stuff. So like this was sort of like a continuation of that idea.
I love the huge pop whenever I think in Return of the Jedi when the satellite dish gets knocked off the top on the Falcon. He's like, careful with that thing.
Was there a huge pop? Like, I saw Return of the Jedi in the theater. I don't remember if there was huge pop.
I mean, that was
pop for you. Okay.
For me.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember if like the crowd went nuts when the Millennium Falcon shows up in Force Awakens. It's got like a square. It's got a replacement antenna. And he keeps coming back to Tatooine and
they're fighting the Krayt dragon.
Yeah. All this stuff that's like, just like little references here and there in the fringes of Star Wars, and then we're getting to like kind of go deep with it.
I love how the Krayt dragon, instead of like breathing fire, it like spits acid up everywhere.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good fake out too. We've seen it like jump up and eat a bantha, and then they're like giving like the offering to it, and they set up a bantha, and there's this bantha very clearly set up, and then it just like avoids the bantha and like eats the guys. A lot of Tusken Raider action, a lot of close-ups on the banthas, and these close-ups on the banthas in like full like digital. I do start to like notice some of the seams on the bantha. Like the bantha doesn't really like hold up with like scrutiny. It's a little paper mache-ish, on the horn. Like, you probably weren't meant to see... Like, I'm sure it's, like, perfect, like, a perfect replica of, like, the original banthas, but it's just not holding up in in that sort of soft focus...
Oh, yeah.
Vaseline on the lens kind of thing that Lucas was doing in Star Wars is pretty different from what we're seeing here.
He's like, oh, man, I didn't know... high def 4K was going to be invented. Crap! You can see the scene.
Any of the Tatooine action, it's always fun being on Tatooine in this series. They take full, and that's why it was kind of making me think like, oh, was this originally going to be a Boba Fett story? Because like there'd be a reason for Boba Fett to be kind of centered around Tatooine, because that's like where we last saw him, and that's where he got like real messed up. So there'd probably be some like recuperation time, and then the setting of this series, the way it's like set. Like almost immediately after Return of the Jedi, like that would make pretty solid story sense if you're doing like a Boba Fett.
Yeah, he just emerges from the Sarlacc.
And I know like there was going to be like a Boba Fett series of movies, and that was sort of scrapped pretty quickly. Like it was going to be Josh Trank.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We talked about with Fantastic Four. Josh Trank was going to direct it, and then after like he, basically told people don't go see Fantastic Four. Like on the week it was premiering, he
they're like, Trent, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, they put him in director jail basically, and this the Boba Fett project was a casualty of that. Like, they were like, okay, we're not doing it because for fear that he might badmouth Boba Fett the week it comes out. Like that's kind of like career suicide.
Yeah. We're going to do our director job episode one of these days. John McTiernan has a cup. He's like running it along the borders.
I could see like this beginning life as like maybe the Josh Trank Boba Fett, and then they kind of hand it over to Jon Favreau, and then Jon Favreau sprinkles his magic on it. And
Favreau does a great job.
Oh yeah, I mean this series it's a home run, and it makes a great case for more of these, sort of making Star Wars like a TV series centered thing rather than a cinema centered thing, and that's what's happening now. Like there's just a bunch of these on the way.
In the first episode of season 2, we get rocket firing Boba Fett.
Yeah, the thing we always wanted. Yeah, the toy that we were denied, the rocket firing Boba Fett.
When he cues it up, I was like, oh my god, he's going to fire that rocket. Like,
yeah, that was pretty sweet. This is like so much fan service, and you get to see like what's the point of this thing, like the little scope.
It keeps dropping down. I love that. And then when Boba Fett put his armor on later in the series, he definitely buffed it up. I liked it when it was scuffy, but it was like he put a new coat of paint on it, and he might have had to make some adjustments too for his huge pecs and biceps. The gaffy stick. I was thinking about that the whole time watching. I'm like, what the heck is that thing called?
Yeah, and you see like Boba Fett make like really good use of it,
Oh.
and like the Mandalorian, like how he kind of like speaks Tusken Raider language, like
Yeah.
the sort of like sign language that they use, the sort of like gestures and things. Like, and again, I could see that being like part of like if this were a Boba Fett series, it's like, yeah, Boba Fett claws his way out. He's spending all this time on Tatooine. He gets real tight with his Tusken Raiders. Maybe they like kind of bailed him. Like, and you can sort of see how like for season 2 they may have taken a lot of those story beats and then kind of separated it out, and it becomes like Boba Fett's backstory when he is introduced, instead of being the central character, being like a supporting.
You're blowing my mind here, and you're like, this is. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a total flight of fancy, but I you know, it'd be worth looking into. I'd be curious to find out.
Do the Boba Fett take the microscope to the Boba Fett journey in the Mandalorian.
You know, speaking of like the features of the Boba Fett armor and helmets and things, we got this super cool Mandalorian helmet behind us, made by Brian Nadja, who you know has you know filmed some of our episodes and done the sound for some of our episodes. So he's been like real busy with like the 3D printer. He's making all kinds of cool props, and this is one of them. He's working on like a Thor's hammer.
Oh my god!
With like all the writing
yes.
and stuff. He's doing these like, you know, perfect props and putting like he did like you can see all the detail in like the sort of graphite look to the helmet.
I hope the Mando is not coming to track it down.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Because like as non-Mandalorians, like we are really in trouble
here
having this. Yeah, yeah. He could come and reclaim this.
I can't wait to put that on.
Yeah, yeah.
Later in the episode, I'm going to do I'm going to don the Mandalorian helmet.
You're gonna Mando up.
Oh, yeah. I love Pedro Pascal's voice. I need him to record like my voicemail, like, can't come to the phone right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what's doing in like radio at this point, but it's kind of like, you know, this is Pedro Pascal, TV's Mandalorian, and you are listening to, you know, WYSP.
He's like, tonight on the set, Sunday night movie. I'm Pedro Pascal, and you're watching NBC Sunday Night the Movies. One of the middle episodes, there's like a frog lady that they're transporting.
I think that's like the second or third episode, and
it's
like a two-parter also.
Two-parter, and I know we were talking before in one of our most recent episodes about like CGI, and once again, that is like when I think of CGI, using it as a tool, it felt like that frog lady was like a latex suit with CGI, like additions,
right,
like
right,
eyes,
little hints of CGI here and there, and that seems to be like the new model. Like you seem to be seeing more of that. Like that was in the new Dark Crystal, like the Netflix Dark Crystal.
I haven't seen that one.
You should check that out. Maybe we'll do an episode about it. But they do like it's a lot of puppets and stuff. But then they do like a little bit of CGI here and there on the puppet just to like give it a little more life, a little more. And yeah, like probably like I wouldn't be surprised if that frog lady's suit, if it was like the way like her like back around here would kind of like pump. I wouldn't be surprised if that was practical too, but then maybe the CGI kind of like massages it a little to make it like a little more
I like it, the little doodads,
a little more subtle. And that episode, like that was like the episode where it's like, okay, you love Baby Yoda, now we're gonna test and see if you still love him after you see
this frog lady. Love it. And once again, I'm a sucker for great props. I love that prop of her like egg transport. It was like a little like cylinder with blue liquid and those floating eggs. I was like, that is.
Yet whenever comic conventions come back or whatever, like you're gonna be seeing that frog lady walking around.
I'm gonna have to like work on my frog lady cosplay.
Yeah, definitely. And just like story wise, like I was thinking like story wise. You know, you sort of set up, like everything's like a worst case scenario, and it's like the story could have been like, oh, I need to get to this planet, I have these eggs, and I need to reunite with my frog husband so that he can, inseminate or fertilize these eggs or whatever. so that we can have babies and whatever. But it's like they have to up the stakes and make it like, okay, this is my last batch of eggs. I don't have any, and so they are super delicate. And if it takes too long, like they're all gonna die, and we gotta get. So it's like this is her last chance. So then you got Baby Yoda every so often dipping in there, and like popping them in his mouth, and it's like you put that down, you put that down. Like
it was weird because he had like toast, and then he was doing like little caviar action.
They have set up Baby Yoda.
That's the finer things.
Yeah, well, frog legs. He's had those. They have set up that like Baby Yoda is like a full-on carnivore, and he'll like just stick something in his mouth like that's still alive and eat it up, and so then here it's like he's popping.
It was cracking me up.
Yeah.
The also we got over a couple episodes little alien injection, because whenever Baby Yoda was like walking through those spider eggs, I was like, this little face hugger tribute. You gotta
because like Star Wars can sort of like incorporate all these other sci-fi things that like sort of came later. It can sort of ingest those things and incorporate those things, and like you do see Alien comes in and Blade Runner comes in, and then in this it's kind of like Terminator comes in a little bit. There's like some robot stormtroopers, and then like Battlestar Galactica comes in. There's a little Cylon kind of thing.
What were they called? Like power troopers,
dark
super troopers, dark troopers. The music they were playing, they went full on like dubstep. when the dark troopers came up, it was like.
Yeah, I really like the music in this series.
Those spiders that were running around, the ice spiders, very creepy.
Very creepy.
Like, I was shaking the blanket out.
That might have been my favorite episode of this season. Like it was just kind of like it was just a cool setup, and it was like aliens, and it was there was a real sense of danger and like a little like a new flavor for Star Wars. And again, like I think the pathos of like the Frog Lady story was like it adds like another element, and that like she's got to take care of these eggs, and then she like disappears, and then like he's walking around, and then he sees she's in this like hot spring. And putting the eggs in there to kind of like warm up on this ice planet.
It's also funny seeing like the little her like abilities, like she could shoot her tongue out, and then like when they were running she started hopping
like Yoda. Like Yoda, in the first series of movies, he kind of, like, George Lucas would describe him as like a little like alien frog or whatever, and I didn't really get that until the prequels, where you do see him like boing boing boing, bouncing around, and
he like it showed like the camera was like down, looking down, and Yoda was trying to cross the street. He was like a Chevy Impala comes by and he squashes Yoda.
In the first episode, where like at the very end you see like Boba Fett show up, like did you recognize that as Boba Fett when you saw that?
Like
because he kind of pops up at the end and just kind of turns around and starts walking towards the camera. And again, it's like we haven't seen him, like we haven't seen that actor's face since Attack of the Clones, and that's been like 20 years at this point. So it's like, but like when that part comes up, it does feel like we're supposed to be like Boba Fett. We're supposed to but I wonder.
I didn't catch it. Like
I mean, I knew that Boba Fett was coming back. That was spoiled for me. So when I saw him, I was like, there he is. But I did think like, are people supposed to know that? Like it seems like people are supposed to know that that's him, or it's just like maybe like deep cut fan kind of thing. Like were you like, holy shit, there he is? Because he looks pretty, like to me he's like very recognizable, but I was ready for it. But he is pretty different. Like he doesn't have any hair.
I was like, oh my god, it's Jango Fett.
Yeah. I mean, did you even think that, or you were just like, there's some guy that I'm supposed to know who it is?
It was Jango, like the guy that played Jango Fett.
You knew it was him.
And knew it was him.
Okay.
But I had to look it up. His name.
Well, okay, so then you caught that, because that so maybe you're not necessarily supposed to make the jump to thinking like, oh, that's Boba Fett, but it is like, okay, there's that guy, and then if your Star Wars IQ is a certain level, you're like, oh, well, that would be Boba Fett because he's a clone of Jango Fett. It's the same actor, and he's all grown up, and blah blah blah. And Jango Fett was decapitated. Boba Fett in Return of the Jedi falls into the Sarlacc pit.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, like as far as Lucas was concerned, that was the end of Boba Fett. And the Sarlacc even like burps, like, you know, he ate Boba Fett and he burps, but it's like, you know, to the fans and stuff, it's like, okay, Boba Fett deserves better than that. And then Dark Empire, it's like, oh yeah, Boba Fett's back. You know, Dark Empire brought back Boba Fett, and I was happy with that because I was glad to have Boba Fett back in the world to kind of have like some more adventures.
I'm like, why is Boba Fett back? He died in Return of the Jedi. I want him dead.
Han Solo accidentally killed him, and the Sarlacc burped. That's good enough for me. Like, you're killing my childhood by bringing.
You've ruined my childhood by bringing Boba Fett back. I made peace with his death.
It was bad, but I went through the 12 steps. The 12 stages of grief.
How dare you bring Boba Fett back into my...
How dare you bring back my favorite character who died a silly death.
And wore a cool costume.
A silly, inconclusive death.
That left room in the story for his return.
You know, like, that's another thing to bring up. Like, I mean, in this series, there's all these, there's like a million, Jedi. There's more Jedi. Now, for Lucas, to him, like, when he made Return of the Jedi, like he said, it was important to him for the story to, like, establish that, like, Luke is the last Jedi. There are no more Jedi anywhere else. We've seen, like, all the Jedi we know of, we've seen them all die. And there's no other Jedi, and Luke is the last of the Jedi. And then, he's gonna, go on his little mission, and as far as Lucas was concerned, that was the end of the Star Wars story. But then it's like, when they start making, like, more books and comics and expanded universe, and then start making more movies and stuff, it's like, okay, that's like all the Jedi we knew about, but maybe there's a Jedi over here, maybe there's a Jedi over there, and enough years have passed. Like, I'm sure, like they're doing all this stuff regardless of what Lucas thinks, but I'm sure, like, he's cool with there being all these other Jedi. But it is like, okay, there's the Rosario Dawson Jedi.
Yeah, so cool.
Now, like, I don't know, like, the names of, like, all the Jedi characters and stuff, but, like, is she supposed to be, because there's, like, a Jedi that looks just like that in the prequels.
Yeah.
And then, like, is she supposed to be her, or is she just somebody who, like,
I'm not sure,
has a similar look from the same planet or whatever?
Yeah, maybe from the same planet. Such a cool look though, with like the stripes and like the orange coloring. Yeah, she was on the I know we have like the snow planet, the swamp planet. Now we have the forest fire planet.
Well, it's the Akira Kurosawa planet, because again, like, samurai movies are like a big part of Star Wars DNA. And specifically Akira Kurosawa samurai movies, and so this is like the Akira Kurosawa planet. This is like and there's like a ton of wind, and like that's like the Seven Samurai. There was always like a ton of wind, like it was just like all this wind. Like it gives it gives like just the world so much life. Like in those Kurosawa movies. And it is something like, you don't see a lot of wind in movies. Like, it really, because it's probably hard to work with.
Blowing shit around.
Yeah,
and stuff
it just makes more sense to not have wind. But then that was like an element of that. There's like all this stuff like blowing.
When the characters aren't talking for like stretches, it's nice to hear like the sounds of like the nature sounds. But I'm like, why did I write this scene with a rainstorm? Damn it, this is like ruining everything.
And Rosario Dawson's lightsabers, it's like, okay, a new look for lightsabers. It's white lightsabers. It's white light. Yeah.
And
you've seen the blue lightsaber, the red lightsaber, the green lightsaber.
Now here's the white lightsaber.
Yeah.
We talked about alien injection. I didn't check the cast. I think that was Michael Biehn from Aliens as the gunfighter in town. That had to have been Michael Biehn. The Hicks from Aliens.
Like, I haven't seen him since Grindhouse.
Yeah,
he was in
Planet
Terror. Yeah, so I haven't seen him since that. He was real good in it, and we get like an old fashioned showdown. There's a lot of
showdown.
This is like the new Western.
You get like a sword showdown, and you get a gunfighters. Like,
because it is like the Western and the and the samurai movie are sort of like these complementary genres that have been like married, you know, long, like they cross influence. They would influence each other, like going back to the beginning. There'd be influence from like the Western to the samurai movie, and the samurai movie to the Western, and it's been explored ever since. Like, and Star Wars is just another instance of like those two things intersecting.
I thought the Mandalorian, he did a little bit of gun trick. I thought he was going to spin it. And
yeah,
then,
right.
Like,
he did he did like a low key spin.
One.
Yeah.
A lot of jetpack action. We're glad for that.
Like with the Boba Fett toy, I took so much advantage of the jetpack in my play. You know, there was way more jetpack action than in the movies. That was exciting in Return of the Jedi, seeing that jetpack come into play for the first time.
Yes. But once again, Han Solo, he accidentally killed Boba Fett.
Yeah, something very unsatisfying about an accidental. But again, like
Boba Fett. Boba Fett. Where?
Boba Fett. Boba Fett.
Where?
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett. Boba Fett.
Yeah, everybody pronounces these names differently. Karuskin. Jake Lloyd calling
Londo.
Karuskin. Yeah, and they'd be like Leia, Leah,
Prince.
Han, Han,
Han.
Everybody pronounces these names differently.
Luke Skywalker.
Lucky Skywalker. This episode where he like brings, like, we're in the cantina and Amy Sedaris, that's Amy Sedaris, right?
Yes.
And I guess, like, you know, she worked with Jon Favreau in Elf.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, probably bringing her back. Like a lot, like you see a lot of the Jon Favreau players.
I think in that first episode he's got his buddy Leguizamo doing a little voices. I think last season one bounty hunter was his buddy Bobby Cannavale's like son was an actor.
Okay.
And
when's Vince Vaughn gonna show up?
Oh my God, you're right. He's like, Tatooine, baby, Tatooine.
Yeah, like if we ever meet, like, you know, Han Solo's dad or something.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
Amy Sedaris is playing cards. Like, it's all this deep cut stuff, so it's like she's playing cards with that bug, that praying mantis that's like in the background of like Star Wars in the cantina. And then again, like, it's all this cool stuff when you see the drawings at the end of the episode, and you see like it didn't make its way into the episode itself, but in the drawing, she's sitting playing cards, and she's sitting like the same way Han is like sitting in the cantina, like with like her feet up and stuff.
Everyone looks like they're in the Greedo booth.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm like, there's a blast mark right behind.
Right, there's this big stain, this big green stain. How good does that dragon meat look?
It looks pretty great.
And they're like cooking it with like a pod racer engine.
She's like, that's why you look at the marbling on that. In the cantina, I think I saw EV-99 was the bar back in there. She's got the Ellen Ripley from Alien Perm going on with like
kind of like an alien style jumpsuit. Yeah.
Here we go. Baby Yoda. Who's Baby Yoda? Who?
Yeah. Right. Exactly. It's like, oh, you like Baby Yoda? Well, we're gonna make you not like. We're gonna make Baby Yoda into like a little creep. He can get away with a lot of stuff because he just doesn't know any better. These like frog eggs can't survive hyperspace. Like if they go through hyperspace, they're not going to survive. So they have to. He has to fly there, not in hyperspace, and so that's a big inconvenience. But then it's like they're flying like through normal space, and there's so much like jostling and shaking and stuff. Like, don't you think that's like worse for the eggs? Than
Definitely worse.
A short hyperdrive.
It's like, you know what? We're just going to expose them to a little bit of hyperdrive. They should be tip top when we get to our destination.
They do a good job of selling this thing of like, this mission's probably not going to work. Every one of these eggs is probably going to get eaten by Baby Yoda, or they're just going to get, you know,
he was
destroyed.
Putting salt on one.
But yeah, that episode was so much fun of them like on that ice planet with the spiders. And then when X-Wings show up, it's like, oh, we're in trouble. You know, it's the law.
That's another great aspect. Like, you're used to seeing X-Wings and being like, here come the heroes. And I'm like, great, it's the X-Wings. I'm like, get off this guy's back. Cut him some slack.
The Mandalorian operates in this like gray area, this sort of, you know, he goes to planets that aren't really, you know, where you gotta kind of, you know, break the rules to survive, and he's on the wrong side of the law. And that backpack's kind of shaped like an R2 unit.
Oh my God. When R2 shows up at the end.
When Baby Yoda, Grogu, I respect the Grogu name. Like,
Yeah.
like these names, it's kind of hard. Like, and that's a big part of like Star Wars and stuff. It's like you got to figure out come up with the right name. I thought Grogu was a good fit.
Yeah, I did too.
And it was a good
Yoda,
reveal. Grogu. I can see Yoda naming his son. Like, it doesn't sound stupid. It fits. It works. I'm still calling him Baby Yoda, but I'll probably come around at some point.
But we're acknowledging Grogu.
Yeah, call him by his given name. And it was kind of like a reveal. It was like Rosario Dawson's Jedi character. She communes with him, and she has some information that the Mandalorian wasn't able to get. And starting with, hey, he's got a name. It's Grogu. Stop calling him Baby Yoda.
Well, his name's Kaiser Soze. He told me his name.
His name is Yadu.
His name is
Yado.
His name is Yanni. You have to get him to the Acropolis. We'll be performing live.
It's like they work so hard to come up with the exact right name, but then they have like some blind spot, where they like overlook something real obvious, and then it's like, yeah, Yanni. Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, and like
Yanni. They keep calling him Yanni.
There's like nobody in the room to be like, oh wait, but that's Yanni. You know about Yanni, right? Yeah.
Your mission is to get him to the Acropolis. He's going to perform New Age music.
Yeah, I could see it. Like they kind of do. Like maybe that was like a rough draft. He kind of goes to this like ancient ruin, and hangs out and all this like light show. And
in the original Boba Fett story, it was
Yanni, and he got him to the Acropolis. Star Wars is going to jump the shark so hard when somebody goes to Earth. It's going to be like I so want that to happen. And like it's gonna blow everybody's minds whenever they do that, but it is fits every definition of jump the shark.
Yes,
because sometimes something jumps the shark at its best moment. Like it's the best moment, and then it's like garbage afterwards. That's sometimes a jump the shark too, and that would be that.
There's somebody watching like The Force Awakens in a theater, and then like Luke and want to get into like a fight with stormtroopers in the theater watching Star Wars.
Yeah, well, because then it becomes Masters of the Universe movie with Dolph Lundgren. It's like, okay, now we got Star Destroyers flying down. I like when the X-Wings go in, like the S-foil, X position, when it's like, uh-oh, things are getting dangerous. They just, like, that's like, the siren going whoop whoop or whatever. It's like, and the chase is on. And it's like, oh, are they going to go on to, is this Hoth? Oh, it's like an ice planet. It's like, is this Hoth? I don't think it is. But
I don't think so. It could be.
But maybe in the rough draft,
it was.
They also like make a tie to like the Timothy Zahn books. Like they mention Grand Admiral Thrawn, who was like, he was the heavy in the Timothy Zahn books. One of the things that kind of threw me with the Timothy Zahn books was like they introduced hot chocolate. They were like, Luke was like drinking hot chocolate, and he's like, this is like an amazing beverage that Lando gave me, and he went to like a far distant planet that had hot chocolate, and he brought it back, and he gave it to me, and now I'm drinking hot chocolate, and like it just made my blood boil. That like it's like the worst possible way, or like such a stupid way to like connect Star Wars to Earth. That like, because it's like, okay, so like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away is like far enough into the past that we had hot chocolate. So like maybe a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away is like, okay, the long time ago is the 50s. This takes place in the 50s, God. And then like Lando comes to Earth in the 50s and goes to like Arnold's Diner or Mel's Diner from American Graffiti, and he gets some hot chocolate and brings it back and gives it to Luke.
Yeah, Luke was saying, he's like, Lando kept talking about this guy, the Fawns. He wouldn't shut up about it.
So it's Earth, and a long time ago isn't like, oh, this is like, this is before, the pyramids were built or whatever. It's like, this is, before the 60s. That's the long time.
In Mos Eisley Cantina, he's like, what are you doing, Lando? He's like, I saw this guy on Earth, the Fawns, do this. And he's kicking, like, the Mos Eisley jukebox.
But it's coming. When Star Wars comes to Earth, like, that's when they've exhausted all other possibilities, and now they have to have Star Wars versus Marvel. Where it's like,
oh my God.
It's the Avengers versus, Tom, the Jedi.
You put on the record here, you're all over this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, like, that discussion has already happened, like, and it's like, and there's probably, like, really strong factions within Disney where they're like, we absolutely cannot ever do this. This will destroy Star Wars forever. And then there's other sides where, like, we are going to do this. It's only a matter of when. It's going to happen. Yeah.
Someone's got to break the ice and break the seal.
If we don't do it, somebody else, like, Zahn already, blew it.
Luke, you've got to try this. It's hot chocolate.
That's why they, like, did away with the expanded universe. That's why, like, the first thing Disney did was say, okay, the expanded universe didn't happen, or it didn't happen the way it happened. Before, you're going to see retellings or contradictions. Forget the expanded universe. And it was just to eliminate that like, one sentence reference to hot chocolate from Heir to the Empire.
Amazing drink. The coolest guy I've ever seen. The Fonz.
I was so angry when I read, like, Luke, because Luke should be drinking something that's, like, blue. He should not be drinking hot chocolate.
You gotta try this spaghetti.
SpaghettiOs.
SpaghettiOs.
He brought back a can of spaghetti, this delicacy from this far distant world.
Han's like, Lando, what's clogging up the storage on the Millennium Falcon? It's like pallet after pallet of SpaghettiOs. Brought it back from Earth.
My thought was that, like, the way they'll reveal it is, like, Captain America, like, throws his shield at some, like, shadowy figure, and then, like, the shield stops in midair, and then we see the guy turn around, and it's Darth Vader.
Oh my God.
Or he takes his lightsaber and, like, cuts the shield in half, and it's like, that's like the stinger from, like, the end of the next Marvel movie.
The Mandalorian shows up. He's Captain America from the neck down.
Yeah, if they, like, kept the secret of who's under that mask. It's Chris Evans underneath. There's that creep Baby Yoda looking to get some more eggs. First thing on his mind.
Baby Yoda, old news.
When she reunites with her husband, and
they give, like, a little, like, kiss.
We should talk about that. Like, they go to Mon Calamari.
Oh my God.
Which is, like, something you've heard about in the Star Wars movies. Going back to Return of the Jedi, and, like, they'd always talk about how, like, during the first trilogy, they were like, we don't want to do anything on the water. Like, the special effects for water, it's too difficult. We're going to avoid water. So, like, you never see Mon Calamari, except, like, you'd see it in Dark Empire. Like, in the comics, you'd see Mon Calamari. And then when Lucas started doing the prequels, like, the first thing he did was, like, okay, we know how to do water now. And so then he does that, like, extended, like, water sequence.
It was nice to see the different, so you got, like, the Mon Calamari, then there's, like, the squid head guys you would see running around, like, in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, literal calamari.
Calamari, and it kind of, like, shot along, like, the shore, kind of, or, like, right along the ocean, so it was nice to see, just, like, what, like, Mon Calamari would look like.
It was like, it's the New England planet.
Yeah, that's what I was, yeah.
It's like the Stephen King
Deadliest
planet.
Catch.
Yeah, it's like like all these, like, fishermen and stuff, and they had a pretty cool, like, it looked like an AT-AT, but with like a crane
that was awesome
attached to it.
Pull the ship out of the water.
And also, like, it seemed like, because like New England is kind of like the setting for, like, H.P. Lovecraft stuff. Like, he has sort of his, like, fictionalized New England and Arkham.
Yeah.
And so so the Cthulhu mythos, the Cthulhu, like, all those Mon Calamari are kind of like, like all those squid faces are kind of like Cthulhu, and it kind of has it has that feel of the way, like, New England is presented in a Lovecraft story or in, like, a Stephen King story. Yeah, where it's like they're very like everybody's related to each other, and like they're very, like, wary of outsiders, and there's, like, some dark secrets going on and stuff.
That's perfect.
And like, they don't take kindly to strangers, and, like, you're gonna end up in, like, a fishing net.
Like, on the boat, Baby Yoda's, like, little crib, it gets swallowed by that creature in the water, and immediately, like, the shield comes up.
He gets thrown in, like, a shark cage with a shark, and I guess it's like another. It's like a Jaws reference.
Yeah.
When they're on Mon Calamari, they go to that chowder place.
Oh my gosh.
And, like, and the clam chowder, or, like, squid chowder, whatever it is,
comes out of that hose.
That hose, yeah, that's how they serve you. And it's like I love clam chowder.
Me too.
But I know some people are, like, grossed out by it. So if you're grossed out by clam chowder, you're really gonna be grossed out by this stuff coming out of, like, a hose.
The Mandalorian's like, He's like, the red or the white? I gotta get some credits. I'm going out on Deadliest Catch. I'm gonna be checking some lobster nets.
The perfect storm.
Oh my god! It shows him in like Baby Yoda. They're on like the boat going up the wave.
What do you know about the future of the Mandalorian? Because it's like, I had assumed that it's just a discrete 2-season series. It's gonna it wraps up, like that's a pretty nice ending. But I mean, it sounds like they're doing a season 3. Like, is that? Am I right? Or
I think you're right about that. I haven't heard anything that they're not going to continue with the Mandalorian. I have heard about rumblings. We're talking about a Boba Fett show.
Right. Yeah.
I think there's either going to be a Boba Fett movie or series or something.
Mm-hmm. And because like the way this season ends, it's like it could be perfect wrap up. Like he's got Baby Yoda, and then he gets Baby Yoda back to the Jedi and gets it back to Luke in this like sort of beautiful way. It completes the circle. Yoda trained Luke, and now Luke's going to train Yoda's son or nephew or grand cousin or whatever.
Yoda's like, Yoda, you are not the father.
And then he does like a dance.
He's all
really excited on Maury Povich.
I've got the news. He starts doing his flips. Yoda's paternity test on Maury Povich. Yoda, you are not the father. That he's like, pew, pew.
This could be a nice closure if this is the final episode, but then they do have enough like other plot threads, like the whole the whole thing with like the dark saber, and again like Katie Sackhoff shows up, like an actual element of Battlestar Galactica comes into this.
When Luke shows up, it's so awesome. Well, we got some de-aging action going on, and I was like thinking back about The Irishman. We got some Irishman vibes. Mm-hmm. But this one looked a little bit like if you're on Conan O'Brien when he does the lip sketches where like the TV comes down. He's like a freeze from Luke's face, and then like lips are like, Grogu, I'll train you.
The Luke thing, like it was fun. It was cool to see him, but it was like kind of like definite uncanny valley. Shortly after that episode came out, somebody did a deep fake of it where like they enhanced it even further, where like which makes me wonder, like, why don't they just do a deep fake for the actual episode? Because the deep fake looks so good by comparison. Like people have been doing like a deep fake on like making it look even more like Mark Hamill, and then they did the same thing with Carrie Fisher with like Princess Leia at the end of Rogue One.
Yeah,
they did the same. They did deep fake where she looks like even more. So like I don't know why that's not part of the process at this point.
Whenever he took his his hood off, Luke in The Last Jedi, like I thought they made him look older. So I thought maybe in this one he's gonna come in, shave his beard, tighten that haircut up a little bit, and maybe just put some makeup on it, and he would just be like Mark Hamill himself, like.
Yeah, because it is like the same as like, okay, we understand this is like 3 years after Return of the Jedi, but it's like whatever. Like this is it's outer space, you know.
It's just gonna be Hamill like with a shave and a haircut.
Yeah, maybe like a slight de-aging or whatever, or a slight like smoothing. But like no, this is Return. This is like CGI Return of the Jedi Luke, the way they had CGI Star Wars A New Hope Princess Leia. Like I knew Luke. Like that was spoiled. Like I think that was spoiled for like. I thought it was spoiled for everybody, so I'm surprised it wasn't spoiled for you because like, it was just like out there, like immediately, and so like, I see the X-wing show up. I know it's Luke. I see him in his like you just see like. But so when you saw the X-wing show up, were you like, oh, there's Luke?
Yeah, like.
I think they did a really good job of misdirection. Like I knew the ending before I saw like episode 1 of the series. I think they did a good job of misdirection because all through this, like you're never seeing any prime time Star Wars character. Like you're not seeing Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
So I think they did a really good job of setting your expectations where it's like, okay, we're gonna see peripheral characters we've never met before. Like we're not gonna see the prime time. So and like it really felt like it, so that when Luke does show up, it's still a surprise. But when they talk about like, oh, we have to get him back to the Jedi, like I wouldn't have pictured Luke. I would have pictured like, oh, they're gonna try to find some other Yoda-looking people, or they're gonna, and then when Rosario Dawson shows up, it's like, okay, they're gonna try to find like, you know, Rosario Dawson or whatever.
Yeah.
But like it didn't occur to me that it was going to be Luke, except for the fact that I already knew that Luke shows up. So like I think they did a good job of like when you hear like, oh, they need to get him back to the Jedi, you didn't immediately think like, oh, well, that would be Luke because this takes place.
No, I didn't.
Like,
I make the connection.
Yeah, because it does seem super obvious in retrospect, but I guess, you know, and I guess at some like, at what point in this series were you like, oh, they're gonna get Baby Yoda back to Luke? Like when did you make that?
In the last episode, whenever Luke kind of like
when the X-wing showed up.
When the X-wing showed up,
you're like, oh, Luke. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't. He wasn't on my mind before.
Yeah. Because I would imagine like maybe at some point somebody would be like, oh, well, they're taking him to the Jedi. Obviously, they're taking him to Luke. That's the Jedi, you know.
No,
but they did do a good enough. Like I think it's like one of those like subtle like psychological things, or you know, where it's like. Well, there's no way they're going to bring Mark Hamill in this. So, like, because this is all just, you know, new actors. Like, they're saving Mark Hamill's going to show up in the movie. He's not going to show up in the TV show, you know?
Yeah, I didn't make that connection. Not until, like, the very last episode.
Yeah, so it is, like, you know, kudos to them, because I feel like that's how, like, if I didn't already know, I feel like that's how it would have played out for me. I wouldn't have, you know, like, maybe I would have eventually, you know, like, maybe at the X-Wing or before the X-Wing. But I feel like as soon as you see that green lightsaber, it's not a doubt. Like, it seemed like they're trying to make it a little mysterious when you're just seeing him on the screen. But, like, okay, when you see that green lightsaber, then it's like, okay, it's
and then Baby Yoda, when he's, like, touching the television, you're like, oh, yeah, he's feeling Luke's connection to Yoda. Mm-hmm. He's like...
To Yoda, either his father or some completely unrelated...
He's making the connection to my illegitimate father. It's like,
well, Jedi can only be illegitimate fathers. Like, it's interesting how this stuff works, because, like, on paper, it would probably seem like, well, everybody's going to guess that, like, from episode 1, people are going to be like, oh, he's taking the Jedi, he's taking the Luke. So it is kind of cool that they knew that they could kind of, you know, because that's just how, like, drama works. You get so sucked into the story and sucked into, like, what they're showing you and not showing you and the sort of path they're leading you on, that, like, you're not really thinking straight the way you would be if you were, like, in on one of these meetings.
It lulled me into, like, where I'm just like, we're just going to focus on these characters and whoever they're meeting along the way.
Yeah, take me on this ride.
On the ride. And I didn't have any expectations. I'm like, Tom, watching Mandalorian Season 2, we better get Luke.
Something that occurred to me is, like, putting somebody in carbonite is, like, standard operating procedure. Now, in Empire Strikes Back, putting Han in carbonite, they were going to like, they were doing that to test the carbon. It was the carbonite freezing process for human beings was untested, and that Han Solo was the first,
like a guinea pig.
He was the guinea pig, and it's like this highly dangerous thing. Probably not going to work, and then it worked, and that was how they were going to freeze Luke Skywalker and stuff. So it seems like between Empire Strikes Back and The Mandalorian, like, word got out that, like, you can, like, and maybe they even started calling it, like, the Han Solo effect or whatever, that you can, like, that bounty hunters can freeze people in carbonite for transport, and it just became standard operating procedure.
Yeah, they called it soloing.
Yeah, soloing, there you go. Technological breakthroughs can happen like that, where, like, somebody does it, and then it becomes standard operating procedure, like, immediately.
I'm still laughing from Mandalorian first episode when you said that you saw Seth Rogen in the Razor Crest.
Season 3, look for him. I like how quickly those spiders took over the Razor's Crest, and, like, it's just, like, filled with cobwebs.
Oh my god.
It looks like a Raiders of the Lost Ark set.
Absolutely. And I was worried, like, scared that in later episodes they would, as a runner, they would, like, he'd open a closet and, like, a spider would, like, run out and scare him. Or when the Razor Crest got blown up, when he was looking through that crater at the debris, I was wondering if he was going to find, like, a dead spider or something. For the rest of the series, like, these spiders keep, like, coming out of the woodwork. So
when Katie Sackhoff shows up, she's got, like, a little crew of Mandalorians, and it's kind of like, you learn that, like, from their perspective, he's like a yokel who is into this whole, like, dumb interpretation of, like, the Mandalorian creed, and that they're sort of like, they're like the big city Mandalorians, where they're, you know, and like, they have, like, a different view of things, and they're not as
not
literal about stuff. They're not as unyielding, and
Because even like Boba Fett, is that another interpretation of?
Boba Fett. I wonder, like, they probably could have done this story as like, oh yeah, Boba Fett's a Mandalorian, but he's kind of like, okay, this is my father's armor. He doesn't say whether or not his father was a Mandalorian, so it's like, but he's not he says, I'm not a Mandalorian. Maybe he used to be and he gave it up. Maybe his father is one or was one and gave it up. You can do a lot of just like kind of leaving stuff up in the air. That was such a brilliant idea to give you those like concept drawings at the end of each episode. Really great idea. And I did miss them in the final episode, because they didn't, like, the final episode they gave it more of like this like cinema credits and didn't have. I mean, the way they do a lot of this art, I wouldn't be surprised if like they just painted over like Han sitting.
Look, there's the blast mark.
Oh, they do have the blast mark. Okay, so that is the Han C.
Han C.
Oh, and that's the Greedo shot first blast mark, right?
Oh my god.
Or, I don't know if that's the Greedo shot first blast mark, or if that's the
I think that is the Greedo
mark.
shot.
Yeah.
That's where Han's like missing vertebrae, his neck like.
Yeah, he turns into the snake woman from Seventh Voyage of Sinbad and maneuvers out of the way of that. Yeah, it is interesting, like when they pull stuff from the prequels.
Because in this too, they're like, "What's the Force?" It's like, it's held together by all the living things. They're like, listen, we gotta do some midi-chlorian chat here.
They did talk about Baby Yoda's M count, which would be the midi-chlorian. And then they had those tanks that had some kind of like life form or some kind of clone in them that the Empire had. So I'm assuming, like, they're setting all kinds of stuff up. So I'm assuming like, oh, that's like they're trying to resurrect the Emperor, and these are like clone attempts of the Emperor, and they need a midichlorian donation from Baby Yoda, which is why the Empire wants him, and that it's all part of this like larger plan, and we're going to see things play out. We see the return of Moff Gideon.
Oh, Moff Gideon's back! Yeah,
and he's got the dark saber.
That thing's so awesome.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and Baby Yoda is in these like mini shackles.
Oh my gosh!
And it's like, okay, like, you custom made shackles for him.
They're like, those are the cutest pair of like shackles I've ever seen.
I guess it does make sense that like there's like every imaginable kind of alien, so they're gonna need like manacles in every imaginable shape and size. So maybe there's like incredibly thin-wristed aliens that they need those little teeny tiny ones for
Mom,
they call Baby Yoda.
I want Baby Yoda's manacles for Christmas. Those are so cute, honey.
They're like crocheted manacles for Baby Yoda.
The stormtroopers, they showed off the that like stun setting that they
hit Princess Leia with. Yeah, they hit Baby Yoda with that. Ooh. Yeah, it's all these little callbacks. And like, I highly doubt this is the first Star Wars thing you've ever seen. Although maybe like that would be it. It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. Like the perspective, like seeing the perspective of people who like grew up with the prequels as part of the mix and not even thinking of them as like separate. And then it'll be interesting like seeing what like a generation who comes up with like where Mandalorian is like their starting point for Star Wars.
That's pretty cool.
It's a good one. Like, yeah, wow. I wish this would be a cool way to start out. Like, it isn't like because one of the criticisms is like oh, all these prequel haters. It's like, oh, they just don't like the new stuff. They want the stuff from when they were kids. But it's like I like pretty much all the Star Wars stuff except for the prequels. So this is as new as you get.
Yeah.
And I guess a counter argument would be that, well, this panders to like the old school fans, but it's like, okay, hey, the proof is in the pudding. This is good stuff. When Luke shows up, like sort of like the characters that they've established and like the little universe that they've created just within the Mandalorian's milieu, it's kind of like we're supposed to get real excited about seeing Luke and sort of doubling back onto like the larger mythology and the older stuff, but it's also kind of like what they create here is so great that it's almost like, Luke, come on, we don't need you here. Like you're killing the vibe here. Luke, it's like you're like the old man at the
Luke
party.
It's like Luke trying to glom on.
Yeah.
Like Luke's trying to get a little bit of Mandalorian shine.
And I'm sure the thought was the opposite. Was like, oh, like Luke's going to show up and it's going to lend some legitimacy to this kind of like, weird, like, fringe Star Wars thing. But it's like no, this thing is so strong. Like, it's kind of like, you got to kind of like believe in the strength of the thing you're creating. It's like, maybe, like you're creating the Mandalorian. Maybe this ends up being like the definitive Star Wars thing. Maybe it ends up being so great that people are like, oh, fuck all the Star Wars stuff that came before. This is it. And it's like, you got to go in like that,
Yeah, like, we're in the Mandalorian, we're riding high on it, and it's like, no, they're bringing Luke in to try to, like, put it over.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's like, no, don't sell yourself short.
Yeah.
We still love Luke.
Yeah, and it makes great story sense, and it is a great surprise, and it does, but it is kind of like,
no, you don't need him. You got this. You got this.
Some people, it like blew their minds, and it's like, the greatest thing they've ever seen or whatever. But yeah, it's like this thing kind of stands on its own legs. Like Rogue One was like a heavily revised movie. It was kind of like filmed one way, then they kind of got a new team to come in and like change a ton of stuff. And they did so much like fan service where it's like, okay, we're going to show you Darth Vader's home planet. And as a fan, I was so excited to see Darth Vader's home planet, and it was so great. But it's also kind of like it takes away from like this like cool little story we're going. Like, we don't need that. And then it's like, we're going to show you, CGI Princess Leia and stuff. And it's like, again, it took away. And then like what I thought was maybe the biggest failing there was like, they had this like really great actor playing like an Imperial officer who he has this Peter Cushing vibe. It's kind of like, we found a guy who can play a Peter Cushing style role and kind of harken back to that, but he's doing his own thing and he's maybe a little more dangerous or whatever. And then they're like, in the revisions and stuff, it's like, no, we're also going to put a CGI Peter Cushing in too. And it kind of like, it was like kind of redundant and kind of,
I think I know the guy you're talking about. His name's like Ben Mendelsohn. Mm-hmm. He was the lead on the show The Outsider on HBO. He did a really good job.
Yeah, and I feel like inserting like the CGI Peter Cushing, Moff Tarkin, kind of like undercut his...
You're doing a great job, Ben. We're going to bring in Peter, the ghost of Peter.
Yeah, we're going
to prop you up a little bit.
We're going to bring in the algorithm of Peter Cushing. And for my personal taste, as much as I enjoyed all that little fan service stuff, I think the movie would have been stronger. I'd like to see this like earlier version that didn't have so much of that. Like, yeah. Like, hi Peter, hi Carrie. They sewed it into the fabric of A New Hope in a way that was kind of like a little gross to me. Like, yeah, like trust what you're doing. Let the thing you're doing stand on its own feet. And again, the thing with Luke showing up, it was cool, it was fun, and it makes perfect story sense. But it is kind of like, I'm in this world now.
Yeah. We
get like a cool like semi lightsaber duel. We have Moff Gideon with the dark saber versus the Mandalorian with his
what is that metal?
Beskar that he's fighting the dark saber with. And like, I saw this coming because in the episode, in like one of the episodes where he gets, it's like the dark saber, it can cut through anything, almost anything, not pure Beskar. So then it was a pretty cool duel, and he's fighting Moff Gideon, and Moff Gideon like gives him like puts him through the ringer. Like he things weren't looking good for the Mandalorian with that.
The actor that plays Moff Gideon, I think Giancarlo Esposito, maybe he was. He's the Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. Mm-hmm. So he's still a really bad guy in this one, but he's playing loose.
He's got like a real gravity, like a gravitas. He's really really good in the role. Like he does kind of, and he kind of underplays it a little. Like he's loose, but you do feel like the authority
and the danger.
Of the Empire behind him. Same as Werner Herzog kind of brought some of that
to season one. Great side players in some of the earlier episodes. There was Bosch, Titus Welliver, who is on the series Bosch on Amazon. It's like a show for dads. It's like he's like a cop who sold the movie rights to a case, got a bunch of money, and lives in like this sick house in like the Hollywood Hills. But it's a that's a real dad show. But Titus Welliver is in one of the early episodes. Then there's this guy. His name's like Richard Brake. Maybe he's in like some of the Rob Zombie movies. He was that guy that was in the episode where him and Bill Burr had like. He made him have a drink with them in like the Emperor.
Oh, he was really good too.
Yeah.
Like I really like the casting on the Empire guys because they do like they have like the vibe of like the Empire people in the original trilogy, but then they also have a little bit of like a melancholy quality of like we lost the war. We're in hiding.
That's perfect.
We suck, but like it's like it really like it just kind of like fits really well.
Because like in the original Star Wars movies, they filmed in like Europe or UK, so you'd have like a substantial amount of like the like background guys with like British accents, maybe.
Yeah, Welsh.
Welsh,
like Darth Vader with his famous Welsh accent. Yeah, and then like the first Star Wars and the subsequent ones too would have like a tremendous amount of bad overdubs of bad like Paging Mr. Herman kind of
yes,
like overdub.
Exactly. When they were on the shuttle Tidarium looking thing, I swore they did a deliberate like bad dub on one of the side guys to give it like an authentic feel.
I know they've used like the Wilhelm scream.
Yes. Like the one guy had the British accent, and the other guy had like the bad dub.
Yeah. Lord Vader, they're approaching.
Paging Mr. Herman. Paging Mr. Herman.
You see the actor's mouth saying, like, Lord Vader, we think the princess went off in that other one. The voice is like, Lord Vader, we saw the princess getting the other ships. Like, Lord Vader, that bird legged it. And she legged it to the rebel hideout.
Yeah.
Nothing to report, sir. What's your operating number?
Like, we're going to have to do some ADR, some serious ADR work. Yeah, baby, yeah. They're like dressed like a mod. He's like,
Mod Tarkin.
Grand Mod Tarkin. He's got like a beetle. He's got beetle boots on.
That's like what. As soon as like the camera would pan out of, like that's what everything around Star Wars looked like. If the camera just moved, it looks like super. Austin Powers. When Bill Burr shows up, like in season 1, Bill Burr, it kind of feels like it's like the Tarantino episode. It's like with the heist and all this kind of stuff. When he shows up again in season 2, and they're like driving that truck filled with like explosive material and stuff, and then they have to like sit down and have a drink with that Imperial guy. It feels very Tarantino, and
Definitely.
then even like Bill Burr getting like sort of like they're in the clear. They're getting away with it. They're doing, but like Bill Burr has to like shoot the guy for it feels like Django Unchained with
King Schultz.
King Schultz, yeah.
One of these episodes was directed by Robert Rodriguez.
I saw. Now there's a couple episodes where I didn't catch the credits.
Where he put Baby Yoda up on like the hilltop shrine. I think that was.
It was like the next to last episode. With Robert Rodriguez. Any other directors who stood out? I saw that. Bryce Dallas Howard directed another episode. And I think she directs the one where like Katie Sackhoff is introduced.
Yes. Yeah, and she's directed a couple of them. She does a good job.
Yeah, I know she did one in season 1. I noticed. I didn't.
We had Jon Favreau doing a couple.
Yeah.
And then who's the guy? The guy did the Ant-Man and the Wasp. Peyton Reed, maybe.
Okay, yeah, he did one. Yeah.
He did one.
The emphasis is probably going to be away from the cinema movies and on this because it's just like you got your delivery system and
also I hope I don't want them to really increase the budget. I don't want these to start. I like the way they look and the vibe of however they're doing it.
I felt a budget increase in season 2. Like it did feel like okay, they're putting some money in here. I wouldn't say it was necessarily superior to season 1. Like I think I preferred season 1 more than this. I mean, we're on the fringes. The prime time stuff, the big stuff is going on elsewhere, and then the smaller stuff's going on here. And so there's so much opportunity, and things can be so much cooler in the small stuff. And I really liked, they have like the Star Destroyers or whatever, and then they had like, I forget what it was called, like the Star Cruiser or something.
Oh yeah,
it's like
different looking.
Yeah, like in a different size. It had a different look, and you could tell it was smaller.
Yeah,
it was like scaled down. It was smaller, but it still seemed like, oh, this thing might be a little more dangerous. It's not this big bulky thing.
The lumbers around.
Yeah, they like and sort of taken advantage of the smallness.
I don't want it to lose its like feel.
And Moff Gideon, like his mission is like very different than like the mission of like the Star Destroyers in the films, because it's like his mission is like more like sort of like espionage and weird like science experiments and stuff. Like it's stuff that's going on in the shadows, you know, like where like the Star Destroyers are doing like the big stuff. They're doing, you know. George Lucas had so much contempt for Battlestar Galactica. He felt so ripped off, so betrayed. You know, John Dykstra doing it like he was so like bent out of shape over it. You know, and you know, from his perspective, sure, like rightly so. Like a kid dying by choking on a Battlestar Galactica toy, and then the press calling it a Star Wars toy, and George Lucas like, you know, having like, so he has this huge grudge against Battlestar Galactica, and then it's like you just see like as soon as he sold Star Wars, it's like let's bring in all this like Battlestar Galactica stuff. Like The Last Jedi had like a ton of Battlestar Galactica elements, and then like now we got Katie Sackhoff, Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica in here, and then yeah, we have the Dark Troopers, which are like kind of Cylon-ish. Their faces are kind of like they look like the faces are sort of taken from these like early storyboards for the first Star Wars movie, where they're showing like stormtroopers. They had like kind of like a similar like mouthpiece.
Oh yeah,
and you also see like a kind of a similar mouthpiece on the Tusken Raiders, but like the stormtroopers had like this kind of like face and mouthpiece that we're seeing on these Dark Troopers.
There's Titus Welliver working a ferocious tan. Looks, I guess they still have tanning beds in the.
He was, you know, the two sons of Tatooine. You know, the Imperials kind of like they pamper themselves. You know, they're like overly self-involved. So I can see it like they have a tanning bed on board that he spends like a little too much time in.
He's got this little like eye things in the tanning bed. They're like, "Sir, we've got a problem in the docking area," and he's like, "Don't bother me. I'm working on my base."
The scene where like the Mandalorian has to like operate the computer and stuff, it also reminds me of like in Reservoir Dogs when Tim Roth has to like go into like the restroom.
Oh
and,
yeah,
like wash his hands and stuff. You know,
he tells that story about they had like the police dog in there. Mm-hmm. You know, her costume in this is very reminiscent. We were talking earlier, Masters of the Universe. Her costume looks like Tila's costume from the Masters of the Universe.
It does. It's like,
doesn't it?
You're working on Star Wars. You're doing the design. If you go a little this way, you go from Star Wars into Masters of the Universe. You go over here, it starts getting Battlestar Galactica. You go over here, and it's like Buck Rogers, Gil Gerard. You go over here, it's Lord of the Rings. So it's like it is like this zone, and those like Mandalorian outfits, the blue ones that are like new in this season, they do have like a little more of like a fantasy feel, a little more of like a Lord of the Rings, or you know, or like Warhammer 40K, or you know, it's like a little. We're still in Star Wars. Like we haven't gone too far off the rails into like Masters of the Universe territory or whatever, and maybe we'd welcome it. Even.
Oh, we would definitely welcome it. But I'm still laughing about the guys running the controls there.
One of the controls is the tanning booth. He's like,
tanning bed activate.
That could be like a plot element where like the Mandalorian like hides in the tanning bed, and then the guy comes and opens it up. And that big truck that they were driving with Bill Burr and had all the explosives in it, it looked super familiar. Like what?
It looks so familiar too. Like. You know what I was thinking of? There was this toy that I got for my birthday one year when I was in elementary school. It was this red vehicle. It was like multi-parts, and I don't know if you could like, I think it was called the Cat or something. I'm gonna try to look this thing up. And
was it like Tonka or something?
It might have been Tonka, and it was motorized, and it looked like that.
I mean, I like that Jedi and Mandalorian are kind of like these like ancestral enemies, and are sort of set up as like two sort of like, they're set up in contrast to each other. I like that. I like how it plays out, and then it's like kind of cool when he joins up with a Jedi or when he's helping like his Jedi baby.
I like to when he like he doesn't seem to know everything that like all the Star Wars fans do. He's like, Jedi, I kind of heard of those guys. Or like he's like
Grogu, Baby Yoda, goes to that planet and like that he's like in that cone of light that's going up. I guess like that's how Luke knows about him. He's sending up this message to Luke, and now they have this like link or whatever. So like now Luke can like home in on him on the
ship.
Moff Gideon's ship. Yeah, and Moff Gideon, he does like some great like movie serial villain stuff where he's hiding his gun, waiting for the right chance to like sneak up on and do fake outs where he's like, oh sure, like there's no move that's like beneath his dignity to pull.
What a super heel, like in wrestling.
Yeah.
Low blow, little low blows.
and then the thing where he's like gonna shoot himself, which is like another kind of like Battlestar Galactica kind of thing where he's gonna like shoot himself and then they like knock the gun out of his hand.
Moff Gideon's going for the pin on Mandalorian, and he puts his feet up on the ropes.
The whole thing of like Baby Yoda eating all those eggs, it was kind of a nice setup for when like the little frog baby or whatever starts coming out, and then Baby Yoda's playing with them, and like there's a tension of like, oh, is he gonna eat this baby? But it's like, no, he's like, fascinated and loving it and nurturing this little.
Don't leave him around there a couple more seconds. He'd be like down in that thing like that.
He's like, behave. You know what I'm talking about.
Baby Yoda goes into like a bar instead of like pickled eggs in a jar. It's like those like frog eggs. He's like,
those things of the things we're talking about of like, oh, there's more Jedi. Like there was a bunch of Jedi. They're all here and there and everywhere. Like Baby Yoda, they established that he survived, like that he was being trained at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant or Coruscant. He was being trained, and when Anakin Skywalker came in and slaughtered all the younglings, he got away somehow. So like it's again firmly establishing it in the prequels, and so like Baby Yoda is a survivor of the prequels, and maybe there's some other prequel survivors we don't know about. Like okay, Luke takes Baby Yoda, he's going to train him, but then we see in the sequel trilogy, we see that like Luke's Jedi temple, his like Jedi training school that he did, meets a horrible end, and it looks like a similar end as happened in the prequels, where like maybe all his students get killed by Kylo Ren and whatever. But so it's like, okay, is Baby Yoda gonna get?
Oh my god!
But it gives you decades worth of stories you could tell. And I mean, if Baby Yoda survived the first Jedi Purge, he might very well survive the second Jedi Purge.
Did you see that? I can't remember what it might have been. Entertainment Earth maybe, but they're doing a line of like Mandalorian throwback figures. They're designed like the old Star Wars figures from the '70s. So, I think like the Mandalorian, his cape is like one of those plastic like rolled up capes and stuff.
Where you put your sleeves through it.
Yeah.
You've been watching Total Recall, our special Mandalorian Part 2 episode. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and Fantastic Four Grand Design.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli. Support my Patreon at patreon.com. Just search Tom Scioli. And you can follow me on Instagram at Tom_Scioli.
You can follow me on Instagram at cinema_tomb.
And you can follow the show on Twitter at Total Recall Show and on Instagram at Total_Recall_show.